BBC Upload.
BBC Upload.
The best in new comedy, poetry and spoken word.
So what was your favourite film growing up then? Was it a comedy, thriller, or maybe something a little bit spookier, like uploader Bob Lever?
And then I saw a film called Carry On Screaming, which is one of the Carry On films, but it's my favourite.
Yeah, the Carry On films. And the Carry On films, there's no surprise why Bob's been influenced by those. I tell you what, I recently went to go to the Uni of York, actually, to see lots of Eric Morecambe's things that they'd acquired. And that was then I really realised what impact he had on people's lives, and the Carry On films too. Well, for uploader Bob Lever, the film Carry On Screaming inspired this very spooky story.
The Tenant of Hellhole House by J.R. Dullard, as channeled through Bob Lever, narrated by Lawrence Brown. There are those who are convinced that the supernatural exists, whilst still many more remain skeptical. I have long concluded that our position on the spectrum of belief or denial is dependent upon personal experience. Up until the morning of December 6th, 1904, my experience of the supernatural, if one could call it such, had been mild to say the least, limited to such vaguely disturbing experiences as the cold shiver oft described by my German forebears by the idiom "Als wäre gerade jemand über mein Grab gelaufen," as if someone walked over my grave, or one's ears burning because we are oft allegedly the topic of some unseen, disparaging tittle-tattle. And then there is coincidence. Coincidence that cannot easily be explained. Oh, coincidence! And so it was, on the aforementioned Tuesday morning in December, as I sat in the crowded compartment of the 7:15 from Birmingham to London Marylebone, observing the passengers seated opposite, engrossed in reading the latest edition of the Hatter's Gazette, that I somehow managed myself thinking of a former friend and student at College Oxbridge, one Tarquin Topper Middlewicket, a man who was as famed for his signature headgear as he had been for his considerable prowess on the wrestling match and rugby pitch. Topper and I had once been the fastest of friends, but the intervening years had taken us in different directions, and, to my deep regret, we had quite lost touch. Oh, dear Topper. Whatever happened to Topper? Imagine then my utter and complete astonishment when, not a half hour later, as I exited from the relative warmth of the railway station onto the frosty thoroughfare of Malcolm Place, that I first spotted a top hat rising prominently above the bustling crowd, shortly before I all but bumped into my long-lost pal. Our look of mutual amazement was quickly replaced by the broadest of smiles. Even with the addition of a sporty moustache, it could not mask the unmistakably handsome countenance of Topper Middlewicket. He grasped my gloved hand, held it fast in his, and shook it warmly, saying, "Riddle, Jimmy, riddle." With cordial greetings exchanged, we hurriedly retired to an adjacent cafe, and over a cup of steaming hot chocolate made a rush to start on catching up for lost time.
Something tells me they're not quite done with that story, are they? You can listen to the whole thing on YouTube, actually. If you type in by Bob Lever, you can find his whole series there. And I would highly recommend it. He's so talented. How lucky are we to have people like Bob sending their work into bbc.co.uk/upload? Are you the type of person that likes spooky film then? I can't do it. I've actually not finished films before because if I find them too creepy, I'll just turn them off halfway through and then just read the synopsis online. I know it's bad, I know. But for uploader Bob Lever, you will have just heard his story he sent into bbc.co.uk/upload there. It's his bread and butter. He loves a creepy, shivers down your spine, edge of your seat, sweaty palms moment. Not me. I skip through Mild Peril and Disney movies. That's how bad I am. Well, he's been telling me about the latest story he sent into bbc.co.uk/uploads.
It's a story about a young estate agent who is lumbered with a house that they can't let because of ghostly happenings, and he has to go along and try and sort out what the problem is, the mystery is. It's got a comic flavour, but also it's hopefully a bit scary in parts.
What is it about ghost stories that you just love so much and keeps drawing you back to them?
I think it's something from childhood, probably. The more I think about it, it is. I think one of the biggest scares that I had when I was a kid was Hammer horror films.
Oh.
They used to be on late night when I was about 12 or 13, and they used to horrify me, really horrify me. And then I saw a film called Carry On Screaming, which is one of the Carry On films, but it's my favourite. It's probably one of the best, considered one of the best, and it's basically a send-up of Hammer horror films, and I laughed my head off. I remember being terrified at it and laughing my head off at the same time, and it changed something because I could laugh at it, I think. So that's why there's always an element of comedy in what I write. I think they were very influential on me as a kid, and then when I got older, I discovered this whole wealth of existent stories by classic ghost writers and supernatural writers from the Victorian and Edwardian periods, and they influenced me to do put my own spin on it, I guess. Yeah.
It is really funny, isn't it, what sticks with you of what you watch when you are growing up. Do you have any favourite horror movies or stories that you draw inspiration from time and time again?
No, it's more like authors, really. I have favourite authors. This is the one that, in this particular instance, it's a bit specifically a homage to a writer called Charlotte Riddell, and she was ghost stories. She was very popular at the time, and unusually because she was a woman author. But there were a lot of successful female writers of ghost and supernatural fiction in the Victorian and Edwardian period, and they're not as famous as their male counterparts, but Charlotte particularly, she's brilliant. I just love her work. There's another woman called Amelia B. Edwards. Similarly, she writes terrific ghost stories, and so it's a little bit like a comedy love letter to Charlotte Riddell, I suppose.
Oh, so nice to chat to Bob. Amazing what sticks with us, by the way, isn't it? In childhood, what films we absolutely love. I watched the original Snow White again the other day. It was actually much scarier than I remembered.
I haven't slept at all in days. It's been so long since
BBC Upload.
BBC Upload.
The best in new comedy, poetry, and spoken word.